Hello everyone, I have a scrapbook layout for you today. This is going to be a mixed media layout. We're going to do the next page in Morgan's school album, which means it will be an 8.5 by 11. There is our photo. We're going to use some really fun products for today's video. I have this taco stamp from Brutus Monroe, and I also have the coordinating dies. I've gone ahead and cut and colored a couple of these taco images up with my zigs. We're not going to get all of those on the page, but we're going to get a lot. I also have this Tasty Taco 6x6 paper pad and some coordinating cardstock, Lagoon Phone Book, and Macchiato. And then I have these fun mixed media products. This is the Creative Confections, salsa, guacamole, and nacho. And then I also have some chroma glaze in red that we are going to use as well. So let's get started on our backgrounds. I have a sheet of Not Your Mama's cardstock. And I want to talk a little bit about these little creative confections from Brutus Monroe. So each of these little creative confections has extra goodies in with the paste. So it has things like these cool little beads and stuff that kind of gives it some awesome like texture or some sparkle. It's a really unique set of mixed media mediums. I have chosen for all of my projects, what I'm doing is just very carefully kind of smudging this product down the side of my page. The reason I'm doing this is because I want it to look like nachos. I want it to look a little bit messy and foodie. And I'm adding the chroma glaze in the red. Now I pulled the chroma glaze in because I want to show you that it will work with this cheese and guacamole medium as well. I know the salsa is almost sold out in the store. So if you watch this video and you're like, I need this stuff, instead of getting the salsa, I would order the guacamole, the nacho, and then you can grab some red chroma glaze and it will work. So I have one palette knife for each of these colors, and I am pushing the color right up against each other. I'm also putting a lot down. So when this dries, it dries very uniquely. So it's gonna dry back, which means that while it's gonna look kind of thick and heavy when you put it on, as it dries, it like shrinks up. That's the best way I can think of it. It like shrinks up. So when you put, for example, let me give you an example. When you put the nacho down, you can see all the little beads in the nachos, but it looks like it's going to dry without the nacho, without being able to see the beads. It'll look like the beads are like covered up by the medium, but when it dries, it like shrinks up and dries down, and it makes those beads pop completely. Like it doesn't look like they're covered anymore at all. It's crazy. It is like legit Brutus Monroe magic. Next, once I had a nice layer of the medium down, I want to smudge it. I want to smudge it out. So I want to pull it and make it look a little bit messier, a little bit foodier, a little bit, I can't describe it any other way than that. I don't want the edges of the medium to be straight and lined up and look like a border. So I'm using, again, I have a palette knife for each of these colors, and I'm just dragging it across. For both the projects I'm going to show you today, this was what I decided to do. I think you definitely could put each of these mediums through a stencil, but it would need to be one that is very, has a lot of big open spaces. You don't want to use these mediums with a stencil that has small areas or is delicate. For me, I just really liked how this looked when you smudged it on and left it to dry. I felt like it just looked like it was supposed to. Like it looked like guacamole. It looked like, especially that nacho cheese one. The salsa one looked like salsa. Like it, you could totally see what you were going for. And I also felt like these mediums are supposed to look like food. And as a general rule, we don't tend to put our food through stencils. But man, when we're eating tacos, we are never clean with tacos. Like you're never clean. Like there's just stuff dropping everywhere. And so that was kind of where my thought process was going, was that, you know what, this is supposed to look messy. It's supposed to look like food. So let's keep going. Also, FYI, in case you are unfamiliar with Brunos Monroe, their mixed media stuff, they do some of the absolute 100% best, like, food mixed media stuff ever. They, I know in the past they've had releases where they've had stuff that looks like honey, and they've had stuff that looks like Nutella, and it's so cool. I actually have both of those products here as well, and they're super, super fun. So I am just manipulating this, smushing it, spreading it across, just making it look like it is messy and foody, so to speak. They kind of mix together a little bit here and there, and I'm not going to worry about it because this, like I said, when you put it on, that's not how it's going to dry. Like it's going to look completely different. Speaking of dry time, give yourself a good solid 12 hours, especially if you're anything like me and you are heavy-handed with the mixed media. I am always heavy-handed with my mixed media. I always say this. Mixed media has an expiration date. It will expire. Use it, enjoy it, make your projects, sing with them, because you can always grab more, but if it dries out, it's just useless. So I set my background aside to dry completely, and now I've got my stick and stamp map. I knew exactly what I wanted my title to be, so I used a metal alphabet die from my stash and I cut my title out. I want to make Dickers, so I am stacking 3 die cuts high, and then on top I'm putting the color. I'm using that coordinating cardstock, the Macchiato, the Lagoon, and the Phone Book for the top layer of my title. And I use the stick and stamp mat to keep my die cuts into place. And I use a Gina K pick and stick tool to move the die cuts so that they are perfectly lined up and they don't go anywhere, and I don't have these little alphabet dies hanging out all over my desk flying. And I love it. This is hands down my absolute favorite way to use the stick and stamp mat. It is so handy and useful for this. It does this with any die cut. So if you have, I always put, like, if I have die cuts with lots of little parts and pieces, and you're going to put like the first layer down and then put the other layers on top, nothing will hold that into place and help you manipulate it and move it around and get it exactly the way you want, like a stick and stamp mat and a Gina K pick and stick tool. So I am going to just continue on here. I'm going to make all of these letters, stack them all up, and then we will continue on with our project. So if you take a look at our dried background, you can see how each of those mediums dries. The Chroma Glaze will have a gloss. The salsa is super matte. The cheese, the nacho cheese, has a gloss as well, but it has those little beads in it. And now I'm going to go through these pattern papers and choose, I think I end up choosing 3 different patterns to create my layout with. While I mat my photo, I'll tell you a little bit about my photo in this story. So this is another page in Morgan's school scrapbook. I have been working through these pages. And when I got to this one, I didn't really want to use academia because this is just a funny story. And these taco products from Brutus Monroe were absolutely the most perfect thing. So Morgan inherited a very kind of specific thing from me, and that is unconventional breakfast. So I love my coffee, but when it comes to breakfast food, I am not a fan. I don't like pancakes. I don't like waffles. I don't like eggs. No. If I eat if I eat in the morning, it's usually along the lines of like a granola bar or yogurt. But I can tell you that if there is cold pizza in this house, I am reheating it and eating it for breakfast. If there is leftover dinner from the night before and it was good dinner, I am reheating it and eating it for breakfast. It's just crazy and wild, and I don't eat breakfast food, and I'm just not a fan. And Morgan has inherited that or gotten that dislike of breakfast food from me. So during his junior year, before he would go off to class, the thing that he was eating at this time and what he would eat for breakfast every morning without fail was salsa and tortilla chips. That was what he ate for most of his junior year. It was the funniest thing. And I mean, of all the things to eat for breakfast in the morning, right away, first thing in your stomach, chips and salsa, like that's what he ate. I couldn't even argue with him because I also do not eat conventional breakfast. So that's what this story is about, and that is why it is in his school album, because through his entire junior year, that was what I kept at the house for him. So I am mocking up how I want this layout to be. I want to make sure I'm not adding too much. I want to make sure there's some nice open white space, because all of that color and texture going down the left side of the page, and this is an 8.5 by 11 layout. So your measurements and your canvas size is smaller. Obviously smaller, but it's a smaller canvas, and sometimes it's easy to get very overwhelmed and have an 8.5 by 11 canvas become a really hot mess. So we're going to keep this really simple. Now let's talk about adhering things down to this medium. I'm going to use easy strips and pop up my photo. And that worked very, very well. So the Easy Strips foam adhesive from Brutus Monroe stuck right to that mixed media without a problem. It's still good and stuck. And that worked out really well. I'm going to take these two strips. I just cut two little strips to tuck in beside the photo for a little color and a little bit of that pattern. I chose the tomatoes because he's eating salsa. And I also chose the taco one. To me, like, that's all the same, right? Tacos, enchiladas, burritos, chips and salsa, nachos, all that stuff. Now I'm going to go ahead, and this is where it gets interesting. So I thought I would glue this taco down and tuck it in under there. And turns out wet glue is not going to stick to this medium, which is unusual because most of the time wet glue is, when I do a mixed media layout, wet glue is what I have to use to stick it down. But in this particular case, with whatever this is made with, the wet glue was not going to stick to that product. I gave it a really good press down, and then I went ahead and started to put my title into place. And by the time I get done putting the title down, that taco is popping up. So just as an aside, what I did was I went ahead and grabbed some like double-sided tape, and I stuck it down with just some double-sided like tear it tape, and that stuck and worked really good. So when you put adhesive down on top of these mediums, you want to use a dry adhesive, like a foam adhesive or a tape. I wouldn't even use tape runner. I I would use red line tape or tear it tape, something like that. And the foam adhesive did hold the photo down. So if you have some of the easy foam adhesive from Bruce Monroe, that will stick to these mediums too. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add the second little taco down in the corner. And I also added the little sentiment that comes with the taco stamp. It says, "I love you more than tacos," which I thought was appropriate. Now I am going to draw a couple of lines for my journaling. That's what we're going to call this layout pretty much done, except it's me, right? So we need little details. For little details, I am getting a Jelly Roll white pen. This is a size 10 pen from Jelly Roll. It is currently the white pen I am using the most. My best advice is to put a black cardstock beside you and scribble off onto the black cardstock every so often to get the ink nice and running. Once the ink runs, do as much as you can before the ink starts to stop running, and then scribble off on your black cardstock. I added accents to both of the taco stamped images, and I also added accents to all of my die cut letters. I also went ahead and added some flat back crystals. These are the red shift crystals, and I just added a couple around my little taco. Now, if you are a card maker and you are looking for a card idea for these particular products, here is a card idea. Same thing. I did the same thing. It's just instead of a photo, I just have the taco. And there are both projects for you today. If you want to grab some of these taco supplies from Brutus Monroe, I would race over and get them as soon as possible. I know that all of these products are very, very limited supply, like in the single digits of inventory, and they are so fun and cute. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.